The most precious gift, as you know, for the entire season of Advent, that has been what we have been focusing on. That most precious gift we have all received, the gift of faith. Of believing in Jesus Christ, of being Christian and being able to live in this world as a Christian. That most precious gift we've been given. And also, of course, too, what we've been doing along the way is we've been paralleling Matthew Kelly's book, The 4 Signs of a Dynamic Catholic. If you have your copy, of course, you've been following along with us. And he gives those 4 signs. And each week of Advent, we've been trying to take one of those signs and develop it a little bit. And so if you recall, that first week was when we emphasized prayer. One of the things that he found in very dynamic and active Catholics, those who are really entrenched in the faith, the 7%, if you will, were people who prayed, but not only said a prayer like once a week or once a day, but had a prayer routine within their life's routine. Praying every day, several times a day, reflecting on the precious gift that we've received. And then, of course, that second week, we talked about study, not, of course, running back to a university and getting a degree, but just every day trying to follow up on something of the faith. Reading a little bit more about the faith, maybe a couple of pages, maybe watching a short video or something on the faith, and just constantly enhancing our own understanding of the faith. That constant study, if you will. And I have to admit, there are many times, even I, who've received advanced degrees in theology, will still pick up an article or watch something and go, wow, I never realized that. Wow. We're supposed to be constantly in that mode because, let's face it, no one of us knows it all. And so it's always good to be able to develop the answers that we need to answer the difficult questions that come to us. Then the tenor changed in week 3. We got generosity. And the way he describes generosity is different than the other 2. The first 2 are somewhat tangible because you can actually measure them a little bit. So you can look at it and you can say, you know, I've added 10 minutes of prayer. I've started reading 5 pages in this book. But generosity he talks about in the spirit of who we are, the spirit that we have within us, this generous spirit that's always giving, always ready to give, always ready to serve, always ready not just with money, but also with time and talent. Like we see it a little bit from the gospel today, the way the Blessed Mother hastens to Elizabeth's side, not even caring about her own situation, but saying, no, my cousin needs me, off I go. And in a generous way, goes to help her elderly cousin. That kind of spirit that we see in some people that we ought to be cultivating within ourselves, that spirit of generosity. The 4th sign that Matthew Kelly gives us is called evangelization. Now, I know we hear that word a lot the past few years. We've heard it like in the new evangelization and evangelization. And a lot of times, even he points it out in his book. He says, even dynamic Catholics don't appreciate evangelization. He said a lot of them in their self-reporting would say, oh no, I really don't do that. It almost sounds like a Protestant concept. I really don't do that. But then he would probe a little further, and there's one point where he actually said to one of the people, he goes, well, what was the most recent book you read? And he told him the name of the book. He says, where's that book now? Oh, I gave it to a friend. He goes, that's evangelization. If you read a book on the faith and you liked it so much that you gave it to somebody else, you're trying to help them grow as well. And that's the spirit of evangelization. I remember back when I was still working in Grumman, this is back in the 80s, a long, long time ago for me now, but back in the 80s when I was working for Grumman, and I was going through my reversion, and I was getting so overwhelmed by the love of God and Christ in my life and developing a relationship with the Blessed Mother and all these things that I wanted to share it. And we had this brand new computer system that everybody had to log into, and you know, it's different than anything we have today. I mean, this was back in the 80s, so it was one of those systems. But I decided that I would write a couple little subroutines that every time someone logged on, something would pop up like, praise be Jesus Christ, or give yourself over to God, allow the Blessed Mother into your heart. All these little things that would pop up. And I thought it was a way of helping share the good news and do all of these things. But I have to admit, my boss realized that I was the only one that had the skill set to do something like that. So I did get called in, and I kind of got told, no, you got to stop it and take those messages down. It's not appropriate in this place, in this work environment. But I kept saying to myself, but I still need to be about sharing the good news. That which I was experiencing was so precious to me that I wanted to share it with others. And that's just a natural response when we really, truly can appreciate the depth and the breadth of something in our lives. I've watched sometimes, like when someone really likes something, like when you look at some of these people who do marketing and other things, they're trying to sell things, they know their product inside and out, and they can tell you with this excitement and this fervor, and this is why you need it. And yet when it comes to faith, sometimes we Catholics, we tend to be like, well, I love Jesus, but I'll leave it up to you. We really truly need, I think, to develop our relationship with Jesus Christ, and really truly, after the prayer, after the study, after growing in generosity, to really catch a fire within ourselves, to be able to go forth and to share the good news that we've received. It's less than 1 week now. If you haven't got all your shopping done, you only got a few more days. But it's less than 1 week until Christmas right now. And a lot of times, everybody in the world starts to put all this emphasis on getting your list done. Check, check, check. Okay, food, presents, gifts, and we get the tree. And it's all done. And all of that's really important. But are we even planning at all to share the faith that we've received, that precious gift that comes to us in the form of our faith? And maybe in the coming days, even more so now than ever, we as Catholics need to reconnect once again to that process of making sure that at the heart of what we're doing is the Christmas story. And so in the coming days, maybe share that story a little bit with others. Maybe share it within your home. Share it with those with whom you work or go to school. Share it with those whom you encounter of this whole story that we're going to hear next weekend. The story of God becoming a human being, of being a baby, a vulnerable child laying in a manger, of establishing an excitement about that and letting others know that this is why we believe that God came to us and God so loves us and God wants us and desires us for himself. Sharing that story once again, because sometimes it does get lost in the craziness. It gets lost in the busyness of our lives. And yet we're to be evangelists. We're to be purveyors, if you will, of the good news. And let's face it, when it comes to really getting excited about the faith, it's up to you. I know a lot of times, my fervor carried me so much. Obviously, I became a priest because I wanted to be able to share the good news. But I realized that I have to do more than just share the good news within these walls. I have to go out into the world. And it's not always with words. It can be in so many different ways. But to go out and to share the good news with others. And I ask you to do the same. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. If we need a revival in the Catholic Church. We really do. We need a revival of the faith. We've been just dwindling and dwindling and dwindling, and more Catholics are just falling away and falling off the wagon. We need a revival. We need to, once again, get excited about our faith. And don't expect it to come from like Pope Francis. As much as he can write a nice document about it, that's not going to have an impact in someone's life. Or even the bishops, when they put a document together and they encourage us to share the good news, that's going to have minimal impact because it's not going to affect that person who fell away. And even when I get up here and I try to exhort you, I'm only exhorting you, but all of those people I don't have the contact with, but you do. You have that ability to go forth and to share the good news in places that I can't, that I just don't have the opportunity. And so that's why I say to you, the revival of faith is not going to happen from the top down. It's going to happen from the bottom up. It's going to happen because you've become a more dynamic Catholic. You've grown in your faith. You've accepted the responsibility of prayer and study and generosity and evangelization. And that's the difference maker that Matthew Kelly's talking about. If we can move the needle just even 1% or 2%, imagine how much more this great faith of ours could do in this world. Yeah, people need to know about Jesus Christ. They need to know the truth. They need to know that Christianity is a precious gift. The most precious gift that God ever gave us was the gift of his Son. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, I encourage you all this week, start to look again at the great stories that we profess as Catholics. Start to look again and start to really make it your own. Get excited about it again. You know, when I was a kid, I used to get excited about all the wrong things until I figured out that all those wrong things were not what the Christmas story was about. Now, when I reflect back on all the Christmases that have gone by, For the most part, I can't tell you a lot of the gifts that I received, but I can tell you the person who gave it to me. I couldn't tell you a lot of the things that I had physically walked away with on Christmas, but I can remember the people that I shared them with. And that's what we do. We share our love with one another, the love that we received from God. That's evangelization. That's what starts in our homes. That's what starts in our communities. When we come here and are revitalized by the great mystery of God's love for us, then we can go and revitalize the world with the same love that we've received. Such a precious gift. So don't let that gift go to waste. Share it. Share it with others. Become alive again in the faith. Become excited about Jesus Christ. Don't be afraid to allow that to well up within you to the point where you can just say to someone else, Jesus Christ became one of us out of love for us. He loves you tremendously. And I know that because I've experienced that love myself. And so I offer that to you. How many people in this world today need a divine embrace and are not getting it? How many people in this world today are filled with anxiety and fear and all of these different mixes of emotions when all they really need is an embrace of God? And you can be that embrace. You can be his arms, his hands. You can be the one who can make the difference for that person. And so yes, let the revival begin. And let it begin today with us. Let each and every one of us start to grow in our faith and start to become stronger and stronger. One of the things that I would say, I remember it happened a few years, more than 10 years ago now, when I heard someone giving a talk, and they asked a question, and it was a very important question, and I liked the question very much. If you were put on trial for being a Christian, could they find enough evidence to convict you? Could they bring in witnesses who can say, oh yes, very much a Christian? The gauge that I use nowadays, we have platforms out there, these social media. I look at people's platforms. Can I convict this person of being a Christian? When I look at all the stuff that they're posting and all the things that show up in their timeline? I'll tell you right now, I look at someone like my cousin. She is constantly reposting things of meditations that she likes so much, of videos that really touched her, of all these Christian things that you go on her timeline and you can say, oh, definitely a Catholic, definitely a Christian, definitely in love with Jesus Christ. Could you be convicted based on your social presence? My dear brothers and sisters, when we talk about evangelization, we don't have to go stand on a street corner anymore. We don't have to be physically handing things to people because we've got the internet to our advantage. And we can share in ways that we couldn't in times past. And so here's my pledge to you. I will continue to do what I have to do as your pastor, as your priest, to help you to become good evangelists, to help you become a dynamic Catholic, to help you love Jesus Christ so much that it will well up and show to all the world, and then the whole world will finally start to recognize what happened on that cold winter night more than 2,000 years ago. Jesus Christ was born for us. And that, my dear brothers and sisters, is such a precious gift. We ought to be sharing it with the entire world. And so today, especially, I look forward to celebrating next week with you this great and wonderful mystery of God become human. And I want to celebrate it with you so that you can go forth and celebrate it with others. God bless you.